Welcome to Anecdotes for Success with Matt and Paul. Storytelling is an art form, emphasizing the value and learning that is created through personal experience. Our purpose is to share these stories and experiences with the listener. Everyone has a powerful testimony. Let's use them to level up to our best life with truth, meaning, trade-offs, and perspective.
All right, we have another great guest on today. First off, I want to give a shout out to Isaac Mather. He's the one that came up with our new intro to the podcast. You can find him on all social media at Isaac Mather. So we have Dr. Kerry today. Welcome, Dr. Kerry.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yep, Dr. Kerry Akashian. I said it right, correct?
Yes, you did.
There's a lot of pressure there.
That's why I just changed it to Dr. Kerry. You know, a lot of people had a hard time with it, except for people in my hometown. So I'm like, oh, I'll just chop it off right there for branding purposes.
Well, that's a big deal in today's society. Speaking of that, you were joking when we were talking before this podcast, you were going to do a Barbie theme. So you went with the pink shirt. Is that a coincidence?
No, I figured I said it. I was like, oh, well, it's a pink week. And you didn't reply. So I thought you were like, oh my God, what is she talking about? I think I went too far. But,
no, not at all. Apparently that movie's crushing it.
Yeah, you know what? I haven't seen it. It's exciting. It's just funny. It kind of came out of nowhere. She's been so popular for so long. And being raised with Barbies, we weren't really given that like feminist lens on Barbie. So I'd be interested from that perspective to see like, oh, why couldn't we have been raised on that messaging? So it'll be interesting.
My daughter went to see it out in Chicago and she said people were tailgating in the parking lot dressed like Ken and Barbie. So it's turned into this big social gathering.
Yeah.
Well, listen, let's get going. You go back as far back as you want to go. Tell us about yourself. I won't give it away what I know about you. One disclaimer is Matt and I never tell Matt who's on the podcast when we come on Zoom. This is all new to him. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, and it's just kind of a fun thing we do now, and it never disappoints. So let's go. Start where you want to start.
Matt, I thought you were all excited. Like
Kerry, I am excited when we have a guest. I'm always excited. And then you got on and you're enthusiastic. And then you said you talked about something about collecting rare books, which I thought I'd love to hear more about at some point. So I'm excited, but I'm very excited to meet someone new and hear about who what you are or what your beliefs are and what your career is and what you do and all that. It's kind of part of the thing Paul and I have been doing here now. Gosh, it's over a year. I think we've been kind of doing some of that. So don't take offense to it, please. It's just what we do.
No. I think that's so cool. Actually, I think I might use it. Although, I don't know. Some people don't love to be surprised. But yeah, no, I think it's great. And you think fast on your feet, so you can always ask questions. And you're very curious, so it must work.
It's a great format. I have a blank piece of paper. I don't know what I'm going to call the episode yet. I don't know what I'm going to put in the bio, and it always works. No pressure.
Renaissance woman.
We've been right from the beginning, Kerry. We're very aware that we wanted this. If this was going to be interesting for us, we didn't want to. It's not scripted in any way, which is probably obvious, and we didn't. We want it to be natural and normal and a real conversation. And we don't edit. We don't do anything that that a lot of people do. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying we don't do it. So one of the ways we thought we could be real is not have 10 days of prep and go through everyone's background and there's some advantages and there's some disadvantages probably to that, but that's just who we are and what the process we like to follow and what we find is fun for us, right, Paul? So it's kind of that's a reasoning behind it, and I'm actually we've never really even explained it, so I'm glad we're talking about it because that's the reason. We just think it's more natural and more normal.
Well, it's so interesting because I've seen some of your episodes and you wouldn't know that. I guess I didn't, watch the very beginning, but of some of them. But yeah, you'd never know that you don't really know the people. But yeah, no, that's great. That's great. I'm excited. How far back do you want me to go?
You tell us what your interest, but what you're up to, how you got to your point today. Doesn't matter. We'll be all over the place.
Okay, so yeah, so basically, I'll just tell you my title is the Career Development Education Lead in the state of Massachusetts. So the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed. And I also am a consultant for an international education organization. I've made a career, so that title seems very strong, Career Development Education Lead. I think I've made a career out of not knowing at all what I've wanted to do forever and just made a career out of it and been like, kids don't know this, kids don't know that. We should do this, we should do that. And then I remember actually negotiating the title with my boss at the time. And it was something else, like some kind of like coordinator thing. And I'm like, this is what the work entails, and this is what I want to do. So yeah, it's been a long road, and I can go back and talk about my position, but I started out as a teacher in the high school that I went to, and I had graduated from UMass Amherst, and I just realized I was 22. My teachers were still there, the ones that I had as a student. They were on their way out, and I was really learning so much from them, and it was really an exciting time, just such a changing of the guard. And but that's when I realized, what the heck are we learning? We're talking so much about Shakespeare, and we're talking about the American Revolution, which now I appreciate because I live in downtown Boston and I'm so into it now. But in high school, I was like, yeah. So I started to bring in, they really allowed you to play a little bit more when I first started teaching. Now it's more regimented, I think, but I was able to like bring in electives. Yeah, I don't know what you think, Paul, but I know that you teach an elective. So yeah, when I first started teaching, it was like, oh, you think that there should be more multicultural voices in the literature? Okay, you can teach African American literature. You can teach Holocaust and human behavior. So like I got to really play a lot. I mean, academically play, I guess, is my like dorky way of saying it. I was like, isn't it so exciting? Holocaust and human behavior, of course. But it was fascinating to me as of a granddaughter of an Armenian immigrant. Um, so yeah, and then I realized as a kid in an inner city school, and then going to college and then coming back, I felt like I didn't know enough. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I was 22 years old. So I created an academy, a school within a school for students where they could learn about the world and communication and networking and branding, and then get connected with somebody in the community to do an internship. And it was really organically grown over a few years with my friend Miriam Morgenstern. And hundreds of kids have gone through that program. And then after that, I did a lot of different things, like get my master's and PhD, and really focused on what happens after high school, especially in those years 18 to 29 or 18 to 30. And yeah, and then I applied to the Department of Ed, and I've been there for a while working on setting educational policy like internships and best practices in work-based learning and skills that kids need to learn before they graduate, working with employers, working with different school systems, and working with the workforce development system too, to really understand it and see what's going on and make those connections. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm really excited because I've been working with an international organization, and I haven't really traveled since, so my daughter's 12, and I haven't traveled really internationally. I think I went on like a trip to St. Thomas or something, but I haven't, like I went to Cambodia and Vietnam before, and, just overseas. And so this gives me an opportunity to connect more internationally and with what's going on in education internationally. And I'm really excited to learn more because I feel like, I don't know necessarily that America has grown stale, but I feel like we can reinvigorate what we're doing. And then the
Kerry,
rare book.
when you say reinvigorate what we're doing, do you mean that from educational standpoint, or do you mean that more broadly?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what does post-COVID look like in other countries?
Mm,
Does my daughter have to go to college in the United States? Should
mm,
we be
mm.
looking abroad? Does she have to go to college? I would love her to go to college. But what is it?
That's
What are you teaching them? What's important? What really, because as a, I became a single parent in my journey, and there was before that I didn't know anything. You think you don't know anything, and then like bam, life's like, here you go, try this, and then your life can serve as for someone else to learn from. Just really, what is it? What does the state of women look like in your country? How can we empower them? How can we make sure that they are financially literate? But not just that. How can they make a contribution to society and be a little bit more inspiring? Like how can you solve major world problems? So I'm really excited about just different modes of learning, thinking, and just living. Really, just how do we get through this time that we're here, and what should we be doing? And yeah, that's so profound, I know.
no, it's interesting. But go ahead, Paul. I just interrupted you.
That academy within an academy, does that still exist?
So the school within a so it was Lowell High School, and it was like a small school. We called it an academy. I believe it does. It is so I haven't worked there in 9 years since I left. But it definitely got cut a little bit short. Academies are only junior and senior year now. And mine was I know your question was a yes or no, but I have to
That's
give
okay.
you
No.
a little bit more. It was sophomore, junior, and senior year. And it was the only humanities academy, which was really cool. It ended up being, it was the social justice academy. And then because at that time, it was when Bush was in office, and we were called the Academy of Liberal Indoctrination. So they changed our title to, and I was like 24, and they called me a pinko, and I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Like asking my mom. So they changed us to the Public Service and Civic Engagement Academy, and it was interesting because the other academies were more like nursing or engineering, and this was more like people could become a teacher or a lawyer or an activist or just to live, right, and just understand their community.
Well, it's Matt. It sounds so much like what we do. That I so
It
real
it
quick.
it does. It does.
Yeah,
So
we
real,
were ahead of our time, big time.
you,
We were,
you were. So I don't even. I taught normal social studies and business for 18 years, and then the last 7 years, this will be my eighth or ninth. It doesn't matter. I work at a vocational school, but for
oh, you
some
do, okay.
reason, they let our New Visions Academy exist. So we go to 8 school districts and we recruit juniors, honor students. And we have Minds, Innovation, Leadership, and Business. We have medical careers, and then we have human services and education. And we interact all three. So we have kids from all 8 districts, 30 kids each. They come for half a day, 15. They get 19 college credits. They explore whether it's lawyers or engineering or marketing.
Oh,
Matt comes in and mentors, and
nice.
sometimes kids do internships through him. So it's a grander scale, but you basically, what sounds like what you started is what we do. And to this day, I don't know why New York State lets us do it. The students drive there. There's no rules. We have one textbook that we hardly look at. It's more about exploring and experiencing. So you're not wasting time in college. Because let's face it, if you're not sure what you want to do going into college, it gets very expensive.
Yes, and that's another life lesson I've definitely learned.
So I don't
Um,
know why. I don't know why the like what you started should be all throughout Massachusetts. It should be all throughout the country. It's funny how
well,
district. Go ahead.
they have evolved in Massachusetts. It's actually interesting. When I got to the Department of Ed, I was in another position. I was an urban literacy coordinator, and then I moved to more the college career and technical side. But I worked in comprehensive high schools or traditional high schools before that. But now they have things called innovation pathways where they look at the labor market trends and develop broad-based academy structures based on that. And I think it's really interesting. But I do think the reason why not all high schools have had to do this or made changes is because of testing, mandated testing, mandated courses that they have to teach. I taught in a 4,000 student high school, and scheduling was a mess. So to get my 25 to 30 students a year to do internships was one thing, but to get 1,000 seniors to do something is quite another. So the practices have evolved, but the structures in place are really difficult. Sure.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because seniors in high school should be developing skills where they could springboard right into the workforce or college or be self-sufficient. And I feel like that senior year is wasted by so many. I mean, not by the fault of the seniors necessarily, but you know, they're still taking courses. It's like, come on, start experiencing things.
Yeah, during COVID, we did the high school senior internship and education program because we were finding that seniors were just not engaged. They were not all showing up for classes. Because it was just it was like their first year of college almost. They had different hours, different scheduling. And educators were calling in sick more. There wasn't enough bandwidth. So we actually put 800 senior students into the classrooms in their local K through 8 to be tutors, lunch monitors, and really support the educators. And they were given professional development. So they got this huge experience before they graduated. And I really loved that model. And it served like two purposes. It was like to support the teachers who were going through a crisis, to actually three, to support the kids in K through 8 who were losing some of their academics, and then to support the high school seniors to get a quality work-based learning experience before they graduated. So that was a definite win from COVID for sure. But
yeah, Kerry, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just in other countries, they don't go to school until they're 18, and I don't necessarily think I do like the thought of, ending earlier. And by the way, I'm speaking on behalf of myself, not the Department of Education or the government.
Fair, yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah.
So
kind of on that topic, we've had guests on before who've been extremely critical of the education system, the K through 12, I'll call it, educational system. And frankly, we love talking to everyone about, we talk about education a lot because of Paul's career, and I'm an educator, I guess, to some degree, and I think Paul and I both really enjoy the topic, and it's great to have someone of your experience and expertise and background to talk to. And some of the people we've talked to, like I was saying, have been pretty critical of, the system as it is versus, I'll call it a lack of progress, maybe. We're just kind of stuck, and I'm making a general statement here, but we're kind of stuck in our ways.
You can't offend me. Don't worry, I've heard it all. Yeah,
I certainly don't intend to. If I do, it's certainly not on purpose. But there's, and I'm not even saying this is my opinion. I'm saying this is their opinion. Although I do agree with some aspects of it. Some are a little bit more critical of it and think there's different solutions. So, and as an employer, and I employed quite a number of people, I see, and one person in particular brought this to my attention. This was months ago, and she'd said, and I had some criticisms of some of the things I experienced as an employer. And I said, but I can't say anything. I'm not a teacher. I don't live in that world. Her retort, which I've never stopped thinking about, was, no, Matt, you're the one who should provide your opinion. You're the end user. You're the one getting the end product, if you will, or whatever. And I thought that was an interesting perspective. But what do you say to some of those criticism? And it sounds like you've got your own opinions on where things should go. Is it hard to move the needle, move the ball forward is it bureaucracy, and or hey, we're doing great, we should go slowly? Like, I'm just interested in your perspective on that kind of topic, I guess.
Yes, it's difficult. Well, one thing I'll say is that educators in education, it's a predominantly female profession.
Yeah.
So for years, I mean, not Paul, but in Massachusetts, it was 80% female. And I think it's really easy to judge female professions and offer your insight and weight, because a lot of times they're not speaking up and they're not giving their, they're just kind of taking the heat. And I think about it when I think about doctors and different trainings that they have had to have. They fought tooth and nail and they've won and not had to go through as much as educators have. And I do believe there's a gender bias there. I know some people don't like to talk about that kind of stuff, and it's gotten me in trouble before, but I do believe that and I know educators are very strong and they have strong voices. However, I do believe that it's easy to judge a female profession for sure.
I've heard that's also why the pay is so low still compared to a
Oh
lot of
yeah, I
professions.
bet.
I
I
didn't
mean,
mean,
I
I
look
just
at
wanted to put that in there. Sorry.
no, but I mean, I look at like I have, well, I shouldn't. I do have quite a bit of student loan debt. Um, I feel like we've worked so much, like so many professions. But if you look at, for example, like a state police officer, they work for 20 years and then they can get, then they're done and they get their pension or whatever. So that's a male profession. Then we have union jobs and they don't have to have any any education and they're making just as much, if not more than I do. And they're a very male profession. So I do believe that maybe we didn't have to make as much before either. Like there were definitely more two-family households, right? And it wasn't seen as much of a prized profession. So yeah. Although way back in the day, it was a prized profession. And that goes back to all my rare books if you want to get into that at some point. But it's definitely, and I think I've lost a little bit of my vigor too, being in a bureaucracy for so long. I don't think I would have ever started a workforce readiness global learning type academy when I was, say, 35. I just was a baby coming out of college, like, let's do this. There's no consequences, no school committee's gonna come after me. And then you learn what you don't know. And now, yeah, I'm definitely more guarded with my opinions. And that's why I said something about the gender bias. Like some people are like, that doesn't matter, blah, blah, blah. But I do think that factors into it a little bit, especially like before. Anyway, go ahead.
No. So you think maybe some of it is just I'm just trying to put my thought into words here. It's a hey, I don't want to rock the boat kind of thing because it's not worth it, or there's consequences maybe to it that are comfortable, or whatever the case may be, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was worse before. So like, see how now Paul has this wonderful evolved course and what is it, New Visions Academy. But
Yeah.
those things before were new age and like, what are you trying to do? Why are we doing this? It's not the norm. So I think things have evolved for sure. But I do think, yes, there's a tendency to not rock the boat too much, for sure, because there could be, career consequences. Although
Sure.
now it seems like we're kind of allowed to put those ideas out there. And I do really enjoy that end user kind of quote, because I do think I look at now, what are kids missing when they get to the workplace. And I'm looking at those skills, and there are a lot of problem solving and definitely communication. And that has a lot to do with generational conflict or different ways people grew up in different time periods. So I'm definitely looking at that. And I do think that other professions should weigh in on education. I just don't think that educators' voice should not be included in any of the decisions. And I think that's what happens. Like Bill Gates,
Okay.
wonderful. He's amazing. He's donated so much money to education reform. But sometimes I'm like, okay, why does it take like engineering programs there's an engineering program at Stanford, and they do this like life design and career planning that's going all over the country. And I'm like, why does it take engineers to do this? Like their educators have wanted to do it before. So I just think that educators' voices should be included in these discussions. So So
I would certainly expect. I'm surprised they're not. I mean, I'm not in that world. I would think that would be such a natural that. And again, I'm not even I'm not criticizing at all in this discussion where we're at. I'm not saying, like, when I say, oh, there's some things that I wish as an employer. Well, to be fair, I have to look at that and go, as compared to what? Like, 20 years ago, would it have been better or worse? I can't say. I assume it's better now, frankly.
really,
And I
because they're
hope
looking for actual bodies now. Like people aren't showing up to work. Like
yeah,
I don't know if
yes,
that's what you're having. Like we're
no,
really
no. I was just talking more in general in this past conversation, and that's so nuanced because I'm in one little world, and there's a million different worlds out there, right? Of careers and opportunities and that kind of thing. So mine's more, they're all nuanced in my opinion. But I was just curious what your opinion was on some of these Paul, we've talked to some people want to go completely private, forget public education, right? They want to go completely private, and there's these different spectrums, I guess, of what the right setup might be. And one of the criticisms of public is it's slower moving, but at the same time there's some benefits to moving slower than moving too fast, right? At least that would be my argument. I mean, there's trade-offs in everything. Paul and I talk about it. Our 4 pillars are truth, meaning, trade-offs, and perspective. Everything's a trade-off in life, and the speed of which you change anything is certainly a trade-off. So I just find someone, with your position and your experience, whether you see us moving forward in a positive kind of structured manner, or maybe there's no need to move forward that quickly at all. I mean, we're still a highly educated society, and I would like to think. I don't know where we rank though anymore. Do you guys?
I mean,
versus other countries.
I think we rank differently in certain things,
certain
like
areas.
I don't know, in math.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the actual statistic. I think that we're making progress in some areas. Like we really want students to have life-sustaining wages. We talk about a lot,
Okay.
but I'm way more interested in like, remember when we wanted people to solve major world problems? Remember we wanted the United States to be really bold and progressive in finding solutions. I see that sometimes in my daughter's school, but I don't see it across the board. It's more like, get them the skills they need to get going. And I get that, but like, I want to be a little bit more inspirational too, because we have I think of schools as these giant think tanks for free. I mean, they're not free. We use our tax dollars to pay for them if it's a public school, but we don't have to pay them, right? And they could give us these solutions. Their brains are still developing. It's like boing, 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 boing. The ideas that can come out of these kids' mouths and heads, it's amazing. And I think if we tapped into their potential a little bit more and invested more money in education, I think a lot of people at the top might not exactly know how to do this. That's why I do think some private schools do really well. And I mean, ours are really, really, really pricey here. And I'm not at that point yet to send my daughter to a private school because college is so expensive. So, and I only have one kid, so we're working on it. So yeah, I think a lot of different things, but I do think that maybe we've fallen behind like that whole like invigoration or inspiration or like getting kids to really, there are these things called the global goals, and there were, I think it was 17 or 18 global goals put out by the United Nations. And it's like,
I think it was 17. Yeah, 17. I think it was 17.
You know them. Yeah. So really getting kids more inspired to think about the global goals. I know you're into entrepreneurship. You're an entrepreneur, and NIFTY, the National Foundation. I don't know what the T stands for entrepreneurship.
I'm not familiar with it. Okay, yeah, I'll have to look it up.
So yeah, there are some exciting pockets of things going on, but I do think, overall, could we be even more progressive for sure?
Sure. Couple things quick. I love the fact of calling schools think tanks, because I think right now the common terms are institutions, prisons. I mean, I've heard some people use that term. And as far as the change, I mean, the the people that know best for the schools are the people in the schools.
Right.
And, I know in New York State, I'm sure it's the same everywhere. You have the school boards, which are people in the community, and you have the superintendent with their agenda, always battling out what's best for the school. And very rarely does anybody in the school have any input.
Well, you're
Uh,
so busy, right? Like I
right.
remember, like I was just thinking about that before and I didn't make the connection. It's like the educator's voice can't even be heard because they're at the bake sale, they're coaching, they're dropping their kids off at, their students off at 8:30 at night because they got back from a game. Like they can't be at the school board meeting, forget their own families. It's interesting that yeah.
Yeah. We've been fortunate. Our school boards locally are starting to get an influx of retired teachers
Oh,
on the
that's
board. And it stirs it up enough where, you get said business member, which often, or said parent that comes on the school board because they have this tunnel vision of how it works. And the retired teachers tend to be super opinionated because it doesn't matter
right.
at this point to them. But I still always say, I think it'd be so cool if a school could vote for who their leader should be. And it would probably be the teacher that doesn't want to leave the classroom.
Yeah.
That's not the way it's set up, but I would love that experiment. Like every 5 years, okay, you're now the building leader. Go for it. You have all the powers of the principal. And it'd be the guy in their room. They knock on the door and he's like, oh, crap, I got to do that. I'd rather be with the kids. And boy, what a cool arrangement that would be. But I'm just dreaming. I
No,
think
no,
a
no.
lot
That's like
comes to it.
my friend. I have so Kerry is a popular name in Massachusetts. We have a lot of Irish people here. So my other yeah, like Jennifer is a name in other places, but Kerry is the Massachusetts Jennifer. So my friend, the Massachusetts Jennifer, or Heather, my friend Kerry Mulcahy, Dr. Kerry Mulcahy from Worcester, she has interviewed for superintendent. She's just so well qualified, but God forbid they do not want her to leave that classroom because her test scores are the best in the state, such rapport with kids. And yeah, no, I really love that. People who are really, my mom had a hard time too. She was an administrator, but she always really loved being with the students. So
There's
those are the ones
nothing.
that have the firsthand knowledge, right?
Yeah, and there's nothing that says you couldn't still teach a class if you were an administrator,
Right.
but they do
Right.
get weighed down in a lot of meetings and paperwork and evaluations. I'm not saying I want to, well,
Evaluations,
it's
yes.
exactly why I don't want to do it. But there's got to be a better way, I guess, right? More freedom.
No, for sure. I hear that. I mean, even I it's hard for me to even talk about education so completely because I haven't been in the classroom in 9 years and I was hired to be that person from an urban high school with I remember telling the person who was interviewing me, I'm like, I've had, you know, 5 different languages at the same time of students from home. Like they were speaking 5 different languages at home. Like and they were cheating one day in like 5 different languages on the test, like things that you just wouldn't think about. And the kids all together. It's just things that you forget about. So my mom used to always say, never have a short memory. And that's like her best advice to administrators is just never have a short memory of what it was like to be a teacher, because those are the worst type of administrators, right? So that's
Well,
very,
oftentimes the ones that didn't want to teach anymore.
yeah, yep,
I have a theory. People get mad at me for it. Uh, you get people that, let's face it, they could use the money, so they go into administration. Well, they're young, they didn't like the classroom, they become an administrator, they get used to the salary. So the teachers kind of become the adversaries instead of their teammates because they have to keep everybody above them happy to keep their job. It's
right.
kind of the same with politics. Like you get into politics because you have this philosophy, and then you stay there because you have to develop a science to not get reelected. So it probably be the same way, but I feel like that's the problem. Like we always don't have the right people leading us that really, I love that quote. Let me get that right. Never have a short-term memory of what it was
Never
like
have
to
a
be a
short
teacher.
memory. Like,
Short
yeah, never have a short memory. Yeah, my
of
mom
what,
has a lot of good, good ideas. She taught in an alternative school, and she really has done some amazing work. So it's great I come from a family of educators, both of my grandparents on my mom's side were educators, and my grandfather on the Armenian side owned a hairdressing school when he came from Armenia. He set that up. So I always had like this huge, just bunch of educators, and just learned a lot of different things from them. Yeah, it's a big part of our life over here.
Is that why you got an education? You think it was just kind of the world you grew up in some sense?
Well, yeah, I mean, when I got to the Department of Ed, I'm like, we have to work the day after Thanksgiving. I don't understand. Like what, like, what is going on here? Like, no. Yeah, you know what, I think I grew up at a time I didn't have career development. We didn't have that. And we never had career conversations. So it's what you see growing
Sure.
up.
Yeah.
And blue collar type growing up, I guess you would say. And people were police officers, teachers. My brother is a lawyer. And then my younger brother, maybe he got a little bit better career development, but he's in finance. But yeah, for the most part, my friends are teachers and nurses in that. It's almost like, we grew up like in the, 60s and 70s, I guess, not to offend anyone, in the, 80s. And you know what I mean? It was still pretty old school, I
You
guess.
grew up when you grew up, right?
Yeah, you grew up when you grew up. But that was part of the reason why I moved to where I live now, because I saw that some of the moms here, they work at MIT. There's someone who works on Lou Gehrig's disease.
Wow.
There
Okay.
are just things that like my friends' moms didn't do. So I wanted my daughter to see that there are other possible career paths out there. That was a big kind of impetus for me to get out of my hometown. Although sometimes I'm like, oh, it's so much easier. Like it's a lot to navigate things, and to get in line first, or that kind of thing. So, but
Well,
yeah,
you wanted, well, I mean, we're all parents here, obvious. Well, now that I know that, you want your kids to be exposed to different things, right? And have different perspectives. And I certainly know that's what I want out of, as a parent, is to expose. I have one daughter, and then I have another one on the way. And
oh, really? Wow, that's exciting.
yeah. And
Another daughter on the way, or
another daughter on the way. So I have one daughter who's
You gonna name her
24.
Kerry?
Yeah.
I have one daughter who's 24, and then
Wow.
she's in the business world, and she's entrepreneurial herself.
Was a student of mine.
It was a student of
Oh, wow,
Paul's, actually.
nice.
Yep. And then I have a daughter due in November, and I'm
Wow.
very much looking forward to that that ride as well. And there's nothing like being a parent. I'm preaching to the choir here, but yeah, and exposing my children to other ways of thinking, not just my way, right? And I want to expose myself to other ways of thinking, right? Not just what I might think I believe at the moment, because it does change. And that for me is probably the most important thing I can do. And other than show my children that I love them without there's no strings attached, right? It's like there's just no strings attached. I love you regardless, and that, and exposing them to different things and different people, and that kind of what you were just talking about, Kerry, I think is very powerful. I admire you for wanting to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm scared too. I don't think our parents had to deal with this as much. I'm sure we're, more evolved than our parents. Maybe we know more, but my 12-year-old at the end of the school year was like asking me about taxes. And I'm like, I don't think my dad took my hard paper tax returns. He did them until I think I got married. And like, I just was like, these kids, they're thinking so much. And she's like, you know what? Because I made a couple investment decisions that had gone awry. She's like, I don't want to have debt. I think I'm gonna invest a little bit. I'm like, wow. Well,
Yeah.
maybe I did something right, but I'm
Yeah.
terrified of you at 24 because, like, what are you gonna know by then? You're definitely, even the people right underneath me at work, 10 years younger, right? They're like, I'm like, I am obsolete. I don't know. It might take my institutional knowledge, but like I feel like you're faster, you know more, you have less children. I don't know. Like keep going.
They're way more nimble than we are, right? In so many ways. And it's funny, Paul is a financial professional in another life, and I'm very much interested in those topics as well. And it is I agree with you. The amount of information these younger people have and what they have access to that we just didn't. It wasn't in what they're exposed to. We can, and I'm guilty of it. We can criticize these younger generations for a variety of reasons, and people do, and I'm not immune to that either. But boy, they've got some exposure and a wealth of knowledge and a different way of viewing the world than we do in a lot of ways that is very advantageous, I think. So
yeah, I do. I think you can see the disparities a little bit more too. We're just because I went to the high school that was in my town, and that was pretty much, I mean, my mom did kind of was thinking about sending me to a private school, but of course it wasn't as like, it was never this like outrageous expense that they could never recover from. So yeah, I do think it's advantageous that kids are getting access to this knowledge, but I also think they can also see like, wow, that school or that opportunity is right over there, but I know about it, but I can't access it because it's $60,000 a year. So, and there are ways, but you have to be really tenacious. And I hope, I'm sure we're all teaching our kids to do that kind of thing. But I do notice that too. Like with knowledge, it's like, ugh. You gotta be careful, I guess. Sometimes I'm like, can't it just be like the olden days? But
Well, I feel like that's our biggest weakness in America is sometimes our biggest strength. Like there's a lot of good things, contrary to what the media says or money Twitter says, or there's a lot of students being very well educated and ready to take on the world. But you also can see there's so many that aren't. And the flexibility in a school district to have a program like you started when you were 22 or that I'm lucky to be part of, that's great, but it's almost impossible to scale out nationally. And
yeah, the money, yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I guess it's great for the kids that are part of it, but what do we do about the rest of the students that don't have these opportunities? And that's the $1 million question, right?
Well, yeah, and I also think it's so strange because I live in the city of Boston and these kids are here. There's so many bodies just waiting to be filled with MIT, Harvard, like get them now, bring those kids in, like do something with them so they can contribute to society. But my daughter has been able to, they have taken her there, which is interesting because I never went to MIT just for a visit. They've gone to like the Harvard Museum, but I just feel like there's so many connections that aren't being made that don't cost anything, and I that's where that rare book came, that if you want me to add that angle finally.
Yeah, I'd
no,
love to hear about it. Please
we were going to ask it. So perfect. You made a perfect segue.
So in 2015, I created a superhero for the city of Boston. And her thing was Inno woman, INNO, innovation woman, integrity, no nonsense, optimistic opportunist. A lot. I'll show you. I'll send you an image after. It's pretty funny. She talked to deceased Commonwealth thought leaders like Paul Revere and Ben Franklin, and basically regurgitated their ideas and put them on billboards. This didn't happen because I didn't sell my crypto when I should have and gone and done this other thing. But I found that like the books I was looking at didn't have enough of the context of these people. And so because I'm in downtown Boston, I started buying land deeds from my neighborhood and finding like, Ben Franklin, everything about him from when he was really young, and Paul Revere, and just everyone who basically lived in my area. And I was able to accumulate a lot of rare books. And then I started selling them a little bit too. But that was that was how I got into it, was for creating this superhero. And part of it was let's bring historical figures through a woman, to women and people of color who might not be like, I wasn't into history because it was like these white guys and it was so boring. And my teacher was just like, outline this chapter and hand it in, So I wanted to bring history to life, but also she was about innovative ideas and problem solving, because I feel like Ben Franklin would be a little bit upset about our staleness kind of now. So bringing the kids from Roxbury and Boston to MIT, like these were just ideas that she had, and I found it.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I
know
so was this what was this? I think this is fascinating. The superhero, was it for to look at historical things through the superheroes through this woman's perspective kind of thing?
Yeah, so it was, and I have to, it's funny, I haven't talked about it in a while, but it was really to reinvigorate people. Like I could see her on a billboard just being like, keep your head up, like keep going. And really, so Boston doesn't really have a superhero. We have like, I think Spider-Man is New York, and is Superman New York as well.
Probably. I'm not very good at that.
I mean,
but
this would have been a total nervous breakdown too. People are like, "You're so weird." I had T-shirts and everything. But I was like, "Oh, it'll be a woman because Boston's so progressive. Our superhero will be a woman, and she'll be an intellectual superhero because
Okay.
that's how we fight, with like intellect and speaking and being, that way." So that was my whole thinking behind it. And really, I felt like when I moved here, especially in the political realm, I needed to learn the language of older white men. And so I was kind of like grabbing that bridge and then bringing those lessons, because I would just be like, oh, like you guys don't know what you're talking about. And just kind of like, my uncle was a state rep for 20 years. And I was at these political events my whole life, never thinking about politics and so just kind of a way to connect women and people from different racial backgrounds to like, this is societal problems. Like you could get so many of these policymakers have no idea what they're talking about, and you've been in a classroom for 12 years, not sharing any of that knowledge. So
very cool.
So, yeah, I think I should bring her back. She goes, some people call her Obi-Wan Kenobi, like she comes out every few years. Like
you should. I'm fascinated.
Yeah. Send us a pic.
I will. Yeah. It's fun. And I did get rid of my gosh, my daughter was killing me because she's like, Mom, we live in the North End in the city, and it's pretty small. So we can't live in a museum anymore, Mom. Like I have I have a ledger from everybody in Massachusetts who contributed to the women's suffrage movement. I have like we don't need, like, it's like this big, it's huge. It's just like I had to get rid of some stuff, but now I've really pared down to the stuff that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
well,
neat.
It sounds like you're a real good role model for your daughter too. That's super important.
Yeah, I mean, we're tight. It's just the two of us. We have close family and friends, which is great, but it's definitely interesting because sometimes we could be like roommates, like bosom buddies, that TV show. I'm like, you cannot be like this when you get married. She's like on the couch with like eating ice cream in her underwear. I'm like, no, like I'll never get married and you will never get married if we're just like, this is not how people live. So it's definitely a little bit different. So
hopefully it doesn't turn into The Odd Couple, right?
Well, yeah, no, for sure. That's another reason why I moved to the city. I'm like, we need to be around people. We can't be like those weird isolated moms with their one kid who like don't leave the house. Because sometimes
never see them.
Yeah, I like to be in hermit mode, so that reading my book. So I'm like, at least I'll live in the city where people will be like around me.
Carrie,
don't make her weird.
As we wrap up, tell our viewers where they can find you and all your great work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. I don't know if you're going to put my name up, Kerry Akashian. I'm on Twitter.
Yep.
That's how we met Paul, through friends. Yeah. And that's about it. I need a website, and innowoman.com is still up. I still pay for her every year. She has some She has some interesting articles for sure.
Innawoman.com.
Inno Woman, yeah, INNO woman.com. She's what is it called? She's trademarked in Massachusetts. It's funny. But I didn't realize all that. That's a whole other thing. But you have to buy the trademark
Yeah.
cups and then frisbees, and it's a whole thing.
That's really cool. Well, listen, this was super awesome. You know, we're going to invite you back sometime
Oh,
because
great. Thank you.
we love our education talks, and you know, this. I told you I had a blank sheet of paper. Now it's all.
Did I do okay?
Yeah, you did. We could have an episode on like 10 different things we just barely skimmed the surface on. So Matt and I aren't going anywhere with this. The idea is to keep getting bigger, badder, and stronger. You know, to quote a
Yeah, no, I love it.
crazy person.
Let me
And
know if there's anything I can do for you guys to promote it. I do love, I think some of your, all of your episodes are great, but yeah, that's why I'm, sharing them. And
Well, we appreciate that very much. Thank
yeah,
you. That's very nice. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And like Paul said, it'd be great to have you on again and
anytime.
dive into some of these topics even a little deeper and someone of your experience and intelligence and perspective has a lot to offer, and that's fun. That's why we do it,
yes,
Kerry. It's why we're here.
Yeah, no,
we're
I
not
love it.
no one's cutting us any big checks yet, so we're here because we're
I need
curious
that.
and it's fun. So, and that's why we'll always be here. That was the whole mission the whole time anyway.
yeah, and it's funny. Like no offense to any of the three of us, no one wants to listen to us for 3 hours. Okay, like
Right.
Joe Rogan or something like that.
Yeah.
Not even my wife.
Yeah, but what we're finding is when we have these guests on, we have such great conversations. The 45, 50 minutes doesn't do it justice. So we'll come on with a more targeted topic next time. So it's great to get to know people and then move on to the next relationships with them. So we appreciate you coming on, and yeah, and I'll see you on Twitter.
Yes. Thanks for having me. Congrats on the baby. Congrats
Thank
on
you.
your daughter's call.
Oh, thank you. Hey,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much.
Till next time, Dr. Kerry.
Bye bye. Have a good day.
Bye.